So you teach 7th grade. 7th grade requires structure. So every day you have a jumpstart, opening activity that is pretty much the same every day. So can you sort of walk us through that and show us how that looks in your class?
Sure. We've got, this is our file from the first day of school this year. And what we have here is a jumpstart, typical jumpstart, and notice that it is addressing a language standard. As we said earlier, these are the areas where we can hit those things that typically in the past would have taken 20 to 30 minutes of class time, which we have evaluated that really don't deserve that much class time. There are more important things we need to be doing in class time, so if we can take that 20 to 30 minute segment, break it down to a 5 to 10 minute segment, that's what we need to do. And here we have one on homophones. And the students would just have to very quickly respond to these 3 questions about fill in the blanks for homophones.
Okay, and that's just if they know it or they don't. And then you give them the answers right away.
And then tomorrow it might be 3 different ones.
Okay.
Or it may be on a different standard.
So that's basically they walk in, they start doing that every day.
Yes.
Okay.
It's automatic.
And then what comes? Then what happens?
Well, on this particular day, we exposed our students to what we felt like was the most important reading standard. We wanted to go ahead and throw it out there. We wanted them to be able to decipher what this important standard meant, because we use it and talk about it every day. We have every day. So we asked them to copy the standard in your notebook.
And that's standard 1. Cite several pieces of textual evidence and support it with inferences drawn.
Yes.
So when you'll notice that this is written in blue. One of the conventions we have in our classrooms is whenever we have something on the board that's in blue, that's a signal they write it in their notebook. And we actually had that here because this is the first day of school we're actually teaching in these conventions. But we feel like this standard is driving the boat. This is the standard. If our students go to 8th grade not understanding, not being able to master this standard, then we have failed them.
Technically, I think anytime you read a text in school, you're doing that. So it makes sense for that to be something that you do a close reading on at the beginning of it. So what does that close reading look like?
Well, we asked students to read it. We read it aloud, and we asked them a question. We asked them to look for words with which they were unfamiliar. And they were able to go in and, of course, choose the very words that we knew that they wouldn't know. So they did underline those. And, of course, bingo, there were our 5 words of the day for our first week of school.
So you have a word of the day every day.
This is the other segment to our Jumpstart.
Okay.
So we ask them to pretty closely examine a word that we feel is important. In this case, these words come from our standard. Further, in ensuing weeks, we use words from our primary source.
Text,
yes.
Whatever it is that you're reading.
Yes.
So here you're focusing on that standard, so that they pulled out those words.
Yes.
So they've underlined them. You said these are probably the words you need to know.
Yes.
And then we started with the first word of the day, sight. Notice it's written in blue, so they wrote it down in their notebook, and we showed them the word used in context. And later on, these context sentences will be from the reading. But of course, this was the first day of school. We haven't even begun to read because we didn't even know how to read yet.
Okay.
How we were going to approach reading. That's what we're working on. So we provided them with a sentence, a contextual sentence.
And then we asked them to perform several tasks. And so we took them step by step, first day of school, through these various tasks that we wanted them to perform on this word.
Okay.
So step by step, the first thing we asked them to decide is the part of speech. And unfortunately, on the first day of school, many students weren't able to tell us noun, verb, adjective, or adverb. So we knew that this was going to take some time, but we also knew that this was important. This would force them to go to the sentence, to the context of the sentence, to look around that word, and to determine what its role and purpose was in the sentence.
So they have to do the thinking work of really drawing a conclusion, of determining the part of speech using what they know about language, as opposed to looking it up or you telling it to them.
Yes.
So they're thinking right away.
And again, we are incorporating language and the language standards into our general, everyday, routine activities.
Okay.
So it works nicely. And of course, we ask them for their answers before we reveal. We ask them to prove their answers. It's a verb? Why is it a verb? Tell
Okay.
us about that.
That's a critical step.
Yes.
Why is it a verb?
Why is it a verb?
What evidence is there that shows that it's a verb?
They say it's a noun. Why
is
is
it a
it a
noun?
noun? So we
What's its function?
have to look closely. So that's the first step.
Then we want them to come up with a working definition that they create based on the contextual clues, based on what they know about the part of speech. What do you think that word means? And after we've had a chance to discuss it in the class and they've written down some responses, then we'll show them the actual definition and have them evaluate if their definition looked like the actual definition. And if it did, they need to make revisions.
So again, they have to try to draw a conclusion. They have to think about the word and try to figure out what it is, which is really one of the key skills that you see on assessments,
Absolutely.
is determining from context.
Yes. This gives us an opportunity to do word attack skills like prefixes, look for
Right.
suffixes, look at the root word. It really brings in so many different strategies.
And they're doing it
for
every day.
context. And we do it every day.
And what's interesting about this particular word, sight, we actually were able to use it also as a homophone activity.
Making that connection.
Since there are three different words that have the same sound. And then we get to some synonyms.
Right.
What words could you put in place of sight that would make this sentence have the same meaning? And this is often a very high level thinking skill for them because this requires them to extend their vocabulary.
Very
Right.
tough.
Okay.
And we've discussed it, then we will allow them to see some particular synonyms, and then, at least to start here, we had them choose.
And they don't just wait for you to reveal the word to write it down.
No.
How do you ensure that they're writing it, they're thinking and not just waiting?
We discuss it, and in fact, often, the students will give their synonyms, and when they see them actually as one of the synonyms, there'll be a tremendous positive reaction.
And I try to circulate through the room, during these phases, just to kind of peek and
Right.
let them know they're on the right track or not.
Okay.
And we feel like this last step is one of the most important. We actually ask them to take what they learned and create a sentence of their own.
Okay.
And this is very powerful because they have to put it all together.
They have to show that they own the word, that they understand how to use that word correctly in the sentence.
And you'll know if they know it at this point. And it goes back to what you said earlier, writing and thinking. If they really understand it and can think about it, if they can write about it.
Absolutely.
So can you just show us what it looks like now? Because this was the first stage of it.
This was kind of tedious. You're probably thinking, you take the time to go through all those slides. So we taught them the process through this first slide, and then we consolidated it so that it was much more efficient. They come in, they see this instead, and it's boom, boom, boom.
And notice now you have complex sentence, using the word.
Yes.
This linked back to whatever the jump start was that day. Also notice that the context sentence comes from the reading.
So that's part of what they're going to be reading. So they're seeing the connection between what they're reading and the language, and it's contextualized.
Yes.
Now you have some different activities you do to promote vocabulary. Can you talk about that?
I do. I would love to tell you about our word alerts. And we have a bulletin board in my room, which we will visit. And students have actually created graphic representations of each of our words that are posted on our bulletin board. And anytime a student uses the word in class or writes a sentence or uses it in a paragraph or brings their library book home and they find a word in their book, or they might hear the weatherman use one of our words, I have a token reward system in my class. So the word alerts are just a really active, exciting way for the students to engage in our words, and it's
You say they get excited
amazing.
about learning words.
They are excited. They love learning these words. They love using these words. And this is one of the most valuable things that I've
You're
learned.
giving them a lot of positive feedback about learning. And you're creating an environment where learning vocabulary is exciting.
Yes.
Excellent. So we're going to look next at some other strategies you're using.